I want to start with a question, really a story. I was speaking at a big national sales convention for a very large company, and this was just a few months ago. And one of the divisional managers asked me a question, and I was intrigued by the question, so I'm going to ask it to you. He said, Shari, why is it that some salespeople in the organization are making $40,000 a year, and others are making 5 times that? Why is it that some salespeople are really struggling to pay their rent every month, and others are looking at a cabin in the woods or a second home? Why is it that some salespeople have this consistency of income, this consistency of production, while others struggle day in and day out? Who can answer that question? Any ideas? Why is that? Why is it there's such a disparity? Excellent. So Vicki said some of them are better at keeping the relationship and keeping it coming, and having that repeat business rather than the new business. Great. Somebody else.
Knowledge base.
Knowledge base?
That they're looking for.
Right. Right. So you really have to know your product, don't you? You really have to, and then you get creative from there. How many of you think it has to do with the price, the brand, or the geographical location? People don't buy features, benefits, branding, price. At the end of the day, what makes one salesperson the top and the other one here is that people don't buy your features, your price, your brand. They buy the what's in it for them. And the what's in it for them, I'm going to prove by the end of the day, is always emotional. Always. I don't care who you're selling to or how you're selling it. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at what is that system, because there's a system that needs to be followed for selling emotionally. For years when I was a salesperson, what happened to me is my numbers would go up, they'd go down, they were really inconsistent. And what I've found over the years, over training people for the last 25 years, is that a lot of times salespeople, just like yourselves, you're doing the right things when you're talking to your customers. The problem is you don't always know what it is you're doing when you're doing it right. And here's the reason that's a problem. Because sometimes you'll get off the phone with a client or you'll be meeting with a customer and you'll go, wow, I had the rapport that time. We clicked. Have you had the experience of it working? Haven't you? Well, you just started. Right. But I mean, who here's had the experience of, wow, that was the perfect call. That was the perfect client, the perfect call. And then 3 days later, you're like, what happened? What happened? I had it before. And so here's what I find. We can't really blame it on the customer, can we? We've got to take responsibility, and we say, when I'm doing it right, here's what it is I'm doing. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you a system and put names to the steps of the sale and what you're trying to achieve, so you'll know what it is you're doing when you're doing it right. I had a girl work for me named Kendra. She was great. And she came from Stephen Covey in Salt Lake. And her instincts were amazing. And I said, Kendra, how did you know how to build rapport with that client? And she'll say, I don't know. And I'll say, now when you ask those questions, how did you know what questions? I don't know. Now the problem with Kendra is she didn't make it at her previous job because she had these instincts that were really good, right? And when her instincts kicked in, she was selling everybody she talked to. But then when she'd go into a slump and get a little less confident, she didn't have a name for what it was she was supposed to be doing. She didn't have a system for what it was. So what I started doing with Kendra is I started to show her what she was doing, but more importantly, the why. Because I believe that if you're just following a script or a tip or a technique and you don't know why it is you're doing what you're doing, you can't be creative the next time. Bruce had made a comment earlier, about you really need to know your product and then be creative. That's the why. So we need to know why people do what we do. What are the 7 basic motivations for purchasing anything, the emotional motivations? When people have an objection, you talked about closing. Why are they giving you an objection, particularly when it may not even be true? They've got resistance. Why are they doing it? What's going on psychologically in the mind of the consumer? So what we do at my company at Levitin Group is we not only give you a system of what to say and when to say it, more importantly, we give you the why behind the what. Because I firmly believe if we can understand what's going on in the mind of the buyer, we've got that creativity. I always tell people I don't believe in sales scripts because sales scripts only work if the customer follows their script, but they never do, right? Customers rarely follow a script. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So what I want to do in talking about that sales system or that sales process, and this is a system that literally will work for the rest of your life. It's a foolproof system. It's worked in multiple industries in multiple countries, and it works because it's based on human psychology. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And what I'd like you to do is you may already have a system or a partial system, and I'd like to get an idea of what that is. So if you can, let's work in groups again. You can work in bigger groups if you want. Why don't we do 4 and 4 and 3? And what I'd like you to do for me is write down the steps of your sales process as you know them right now. If you don't have steps, write down what you think they are. What would they be called if you were to put a name or steps to your sales process? What would they be called?